Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever part of the world and time of the day you're tuning in on either my website, www.sonotpcpodcast.com, or my YouTube channel, Sonot PC Podcast with Rob Adamus. I want to thank you, let you know how grateful I am to have you spend some time with me in today's topic. Given the vast array of goings-on around North America, specifically with this past week's midterm U.S. elections where the Democrats are trucking in fake ballots in a line of trucks in Florida, Arizona, and some other states where they lost Senate and House elections. What does this mean? Well, it's the same old with Democrats like the Liberal Party in Canada. Cheat, lie, steal, create violence, do whatever necessary to overturn legal elections by throwing legality and law into the face of the great citizens of the U.S. and Canada. Thinking we're going to just lay down and take whatever crap they throw at us. Let me make a direct statement to these pieces of filth. You may have a percentage of the population dumbed down or laying down to get run over and do nothing against your criminal activities, but North Americans are finally waking up and starting to fight back because we've had enough. You hear me? We've had enough and we're coming to get you. That said, I'm going to spend some time specifically in Canada around an individual whom has been garnering increased attention for his recent leave from the Conservative Party. And when I say leave, depending upon whom you believe, this could mean he was forced out or left on his own volition. The man who's the focus of today's podcast is Maxime Bernier, founder of the newly formed People's Party of Canada. Sounds rather communist. Former Conservative Party MP who lost the leadership vote to Andrew Scheer, which Bernier did not react well to. Nor did Kevin O'Leary, who wanted the Conservative Party leadership nomination as well, and who most people know from his roles on the Dragon's Den and Shark Tank TV shows, and is a frequent guest on investing programs. Max Bernier has built an interesting resume during his time in Canadian politics. Let's visit this, shall we? Ottawa. Aside from calling for an end to supply management in the dairy sector and privatizing Canada Post, the man dubbed Mad Max has a history of making headlines, often with colorful, if not contentious, commentary. Here's a look. April 2008. Country's government to replace the governor of Kandahar, linking him to rampant corruption. I think the Afghan government can work with us to be sure that the governor will be more powerful. Governor will do what he has to do to help us, and there's a question to maybe have a new governor. May 2008, Bernier comes under fire from opposition MPs over his relationship with Julie Couillard, who reportedly has ties to Quebec's notorious biker gangs. Quote, "Never did I think I'd get such a nasty and low attack from an opposition party," he says during question period. "This concerns my private life, the private life in the past of my former girlfriend, and the private lives of people are none of your business." Bernier resigns his cabinet post by the end of the month after he's found to have left confidential briefing notes at Couillard's house. September 2010. Bernier slams a proposal to give federal money for a new NHL rink in Quebec City, needed to fulfill dreams of the return of professional hockey to the city. "It's nice to have dreams," he says, "but when you use borrowed money to achieve them and act as if money grows on trees, you may have a brutal awakening." October 2010. Bernier delivers a speech in Toronto where he says the federal government should end health transfer payments to provinces and territories, creating instead a new system to let them raise the money themselves to cover the cost of health care. April 2011. Bernier holds a campaign rally where he rejects the idea that the Tories aren't open to fresh faces and new ideas. "I think we are an open party, and we like to debate, and the best one will win." What is an election right now if it is not about debates? Bernier is re-elected and is appointed to cabinet as the Minister of State for Small Business, Tourism, and Agriculture. November 2013. At the Conservative Policy Convention, Bernier floats the idea of holding a referendum on whether to abolish the Senate, which at the time is mired in scandal. May 2016, Bernier weighs in on the high-profile acquittal of Senator Mike Duffy in the court judgment itself, which was critical of how Harper's office handled the affair. Quote, "I think we have some blame to take, and that the people who were in charge at the time, they have to take the blame." May 2017, Bernier loses the party's leadership battle to Andrew Scheer on the list of 13 ballots, even though Bernier led the previous 12. Scheer wins with 50.95% of the vote. Bernier earned 49.05%. April 2018. Bernier charges that it was fake conservatives in the Quebec dairy lobby who signed up in the leadership vote to help Scheer win the leadership and protect Canada's supply management system for dairy and poultry products, a scheme Bernier is anxious to abolish. Quote, he did what he thought he had to do to get the most votes, and that is fair game in a democratic system, Bernier writes of Scheer in the book. But this also helps explain why so many people are so cynical about politics, and with good reason. August 2018. Amid controversy over irregular border crossers in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada, Bernier trains his Twitter feed on the issue of immigration and multiculturalism, saying, too much diversity and extreme multiculturalism could divide the country into, quote, little tribes and erode Canada's identity. Immigration in Canada is at too high a level, he writes, and could soon cease to be a tool to economically benefit Canadians, instead becoming a burden and a big government policy of social engineering for ideological and electoral purposes. Okay, there's a bit of a chronological political history for you. Now let's add some missing elements to bring this story together towards an aha conclusion. Mentioned Kevin O'Leary earlier, but didn't mention one of my biggest targets on the planet, George Soros. If you listened in on my other shows, you might ask, why do I bring him up again? Simple answer. Soros is involved in every evil doing on the planet, and when anyone mentions offshore funding, and Soros offshore funded Trudeau through his Tides Foundation, his name inevitably comes up, and my instincts have been in overdrive since Bernier first announced his departure/dismissal from the Conservatives as to where the majority funding is coming into the PPC, which is the People's Party of Canada. Well, here it is. Bernier announced his, quote, leave in August. O'Leary buys into a basket of social media shares in August. Soros buys into a number of the same social media shares in August, all within about an 11-day span. Coincidence? No such thing. Social media and mainstream news censorship of conservative and so-called right-centered thinkers and organizations goes into full effect because of Soros leading up to the U.S. midterm elections, roughly about 90 days out or so. The InfoWars show, built and hosted by Alex Jones, has been the straw man in this censorship. His show falls because it's the most watched, listened to alternative truthful news show. Everybody goes from there, but thank God they've held on through despite Soros' evil attempts to have the show disappear. Bernier gets a large amount of funding through Kevin O'Leary, but doesn't have to disclose where the offshore funding is coming from. It's Soros. Bernier is Soros' backup globalist agenda takeover man of Canada because of Canada's rightful hate of Justin Trudeau. Soros has destabilized, meaning has turned 100 plus countries into shells of what they should be financially, spiritually, and emotionally. Now, a recent Nano survey, fake or not, found 17% of Canadians would be open to supporting Bernier's new party, something he claims comes from his principled policies. Bernier has linked his political beliefs to libertarianism, an ideology that forms the bedrock of many of the populist governments which were swept into power from the U.S. to Brazil. These movements have been mostly homegrown, though some get ideological and strategic support from a global influence organization known as the Atlas Network, which is partially funded by American industrialists David and Charles Koch. The Atlas Network connects their think tanks around the world and promotes libertarian ideas. Now that's surface there. Bernier's not endorsed by Atlas publicly, as they don't directly support or fund candidates, but he and two of his senior staff members have worked at think tanks partnered with Atlas. Atlas lists the Montreal Economic Institute and Canada's Fraser Institute among its partners. Bernier served as a VP at the MEF before entering politics, and one of his two lieutenants at his new party, Martin Mass, also worked there. Bernier's other lieutenant, Maxime Huppe, was until recently at the Fraser Institute. Both Atlas and Fraser have received large donations from the Koch brothers. Globalists like Soros and the Koch brothers typically have the same ideological goals: power and control in all things, and finding political figures to cave to their desires via blackmail or monetary gain are the top two reasons for easy manipulation of individuals like Bernier, Justin Trudeau, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, et al. Now, that you have some background on Bernier, let's take this a bit further. Quite a few people on social media have been contacting me about promoting Bernier. I will not do that. I don't know him personally, but I've done a lot of deep research on him now, and here's what the information is telling me. I always go into a subject with a non-biased approach, let the truth lead where it's supposed to lead, and that's exactly what I've done. These folks who wanted me to promote Bernier are taking his words, his surface words, as if he's the man to lead Canada. Let me explain something. Words mean nothing. Actions mean everything, and in the political world, we've seen how the Liberal Party lied about everything they claimed in their election campaign they were going to do for Canadians, and their actions have shown they absolutely detest Canada. They're tearing our country apart. Max Bernier has, I'll call it, spotty political history. He says things which can resonate with people, but they're surface words. Okay? Based on what I found, and when I say found, I'm talking specifically about who he is connected to via his funding sources. Bernier recently was given the okay to not have to disclose who his funding sources are. Interesting. So much for transparency, which would go a long way towards believing his platform and perhaps having me believe in him as a potential PM of Canada. Well, I found numerous big names who are not Canadian who are part of the globalist elite that fund chaos and anarchy through terrorist organizations like Antifa, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. And when you align yourself to such individuals or groups, what's the inevitable result? You're a puppet to their evil doings, controlled by money and power, which is a fallacy. And you've given your life over to devil worship. I believe from my findings, Max Bernier has gone down this road. He comes off in the media as the opposite of Justin Trudeau, which would be ideal, except his actions will not back up his words. George Soros hedges his bets in every disgusting move he makes in all countries, and Bernier is a perfect alternative to Trudeau and the Liberal Party. All Bernier is doing at this point is vote-splitting people's thoughts and creating a scenario to allow the Liberal Party to get back in as a governing body. Perhaps not as a majority, but at least as a minority, which gives the PPC, or possibly the NDP, a seat at the table. Soros attempted this very tactic before during the June Ontario provincial election by funding the NDP along with the Liberal Party, and thank God he didn't win, when he realized the Libs wouldn't win. Again, he hedged his bets, and I broke this story on social media. Soros was funding them through his Lead Now Foundation out of Vancouver. The other scenario I've theorized is that Justin Trudeau has outlived his usefulness for Soros, and Bernier is a successor being groomed to take over the Liberal Party leader, or the PPC becomes the Liberal alternative. Just putting it out there, listeners. You all need to get out and do your own research with this. That's my every show mantra. I've given you some large additional pieces to the Bernier maze/puzzle. Now go forth and get awakened. Share the information. It's vital you do. The show is but one voice for 37 million Canadians to take back the country. Make it greater than ever in its history and prove to the world a populist government is required, one which cares about its citizens first always in all decisions. Decisions that benefit Canada, not tear it down like every decision that's been thrown in Canadians' faces by the biggest degenerates I've personally seen in my lifetime. Talking about Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. Now, before I conclude this podcast, I want to say this to the listeners. When I put information out to you, it's factual. Truth based upon my inside sources. Constant verification with multiple sources. But again, I ask you, please do your own research. And if perchance you find information that absolutely refutes what I've provided, and that information is 100% truth from sources of impeccable character, morals, integrity, and values, then I will absolutely apologize if what I've put out happens to be wrong. You won't hear that from mainstream fake news media ever. So until my next podcast, I'm humbled you took time out of your day to listen in. Share the information. Make others aware of the show on YouTube at Sonat PC Podcast with Rob Adamus and at www.sonatpcpodcast.com. Be learned. Ask questions about everything. Grow your faith. Take actions and encourage others to do the same against tyranny and the globalist agenda. Be safe. And let me know if there are specific topics you'd like me to research and talk about. And I look forward to being with you again at the next podcast. God bless, and good night.